How's everybody doing? Well, just starting it off, just reflecting on the past 3 days. I know we talked a few days ago, but just what these 4 days of camp really meant, really amounted in my mind, really this whole week going back to our first padded practice, knowing what we have ahead of us these next 3 weeks with some great opportunities with games and still some competitive training camp atmosphere, to get these days really what will essentially be 5 padded practices in a little over 7 days stretch. It's just so important for our team. We've seen the competition ramp up. Obviously, ones versus ones in these competitive periods, that's where we're really defining our identities really in all 3 phases. When I go back and watch the tape, the effort, just the competition. But these guys know how to practice. They've really learned how to push each other, make each other better, but ultimately make sure we're leaving the practice field with the same amount of healthy guys, when we can, that we walked on the field with. So obviously tonight's going to be really exciting. Nights like this are when you kind of feel just how special our fan base really is, and you feel, I was eating dinner earlier a couple hours ago, and you're already seeing, families sitting out in those stands and trying to get a great seat, even though the sun's out, and the idea of we can put on a practice and hopefully put on a show for our fans at this point in training camp in our stadium here at our great facility. I mean, to do all this here is really something. So with that, I'll open it up to you guys.
And not just reflecting on the last 3-4 days, how much overall the vibe of camp going back to that first practice?
Yeah, I think it all goes back to, our guys reported to camp, understanding that the work we put in the spring, albeit not as much full speed as maybe historically has been done, but we did a lot of things building our culture from day one that these guys really took to, especially our leadership, reestablishing that. It did not take long. We picked up right where we left off, but then what's been really exciting for me is just the positive vibe comes from guys knowing what to do, being really well coached. Our coaching staff's done a great job. Like I said, our leadership as well, and really learning how to practice without those competitive reps in the spring, to put the pads on and do it the right way. Each and every time we go out there, we're learning a lot about our team, learning a lot about really all of us out here. But, I keep on challenging these guys for these mini goals day in and day out, what we're trying to get accomplished, and I continue to just be so impressed with their ability to meet those moments, and I fully expect it to continue throughout the season.
Kevin, those periods you've had, you mentioned the 1 versus 1s, but the ones where you've had the 1s versus the 2s on either side of the ball, what is the idea there? What are you hoping to get out of those?
Well, I think anytime, you're trying to script things, not always premier looks, you're not always trying to just have perfect plays out there. You want to see guys react, adjust on the fly. Maybe it's the quarterback, maybe it's EK on defense getting us out of a tough call and getting it into a check to get the right defense, a safer look versus some of the formations we throw at them. A lot of jet sweeps, a lot of just different variations where it's great versus ones, but I think it brings out the best in your 2s as well. You can really see guys establish themselves and deserve to be in that first huddle possibly by those reps. And you see young guys, everybody wants to talk about guys being in those first huddles in end of July and early August. It really matters at the end of this month. But those 2s versus 1s allow us a lot of times to see matchups that maybe you don't see young guys respond. They're running. It's not like we're splitting this playbook in half. We're asking every single Minnesota Viking player right now to digest it all, do their best to learn it, and then go try to play fast. And then we coach it up on the tape and see if we can limit the fact that we're not making, the same mistake over and over again. If we can fix those things and guys can move forward, maybe we can start work them into those competitive 1s versus 1s periods. But there's a method behind all of it. We have a percentage based on what we want to make sure we're getting compete-wise. That's what I call those 1s versus 1s. And then ultimately those 2s versus 1s. How many times can the 2s win the drill? There's no rule that says they're not a scout team. There's no rules that say that they're not allowed to go try to win that drill.
Kevin, with Hard Knocks starting on HBO this week, the Rams were on Hard Knocks in 2020. What do you remember about that experience?
Yeah, I've been on it a couple times. Not always with the greatest of memories going back to my playing career, but they do a great job with it. It's amazing the amount of content they get without really, feeling like they're all over you every day. I give NFL Films and obviously HBO a lot of credit for how they put it together. But in the end, I think every NFL team, all 32, have great stories to tell. There's unbelievable people, unbelievable backgrounds, families, family environments at home that they're able to highlight, and really fans can learn a lot more about these teams that do take on the challenge of Hard Knocks, I would say. But I think it's always something I know people around the league are watching throughout training camp, and it's a special thing that I think it's another way amongst the things that you guys do every day out here to connect us to the fans.
Would you ever like to see the Vikings or not?
Yeah, you know what, I think depending on the year, depending on kind of where we're at, there's a reason why they don't have first-year coaches do that. I could not imagine that at this point with kind of what we're trying to get done every day. But you never say never, and obviously that would be an organizational decision with obviously ownership, Kwesi, Andrew, everybody involved in that, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Kevin, when you look at the size of coaching staff nowadays throughout the league compared to probably it's changed a lot from when even you were a player, why is that, do you think?
Well, I think team to team there's probably different philosophies in that. I know for me personally, you guys have been here really from the jump. When we blow that horn and we split those fields up, there's ones versus ones, walkthroughs and jog-throughs going on, but on the very same, their field next door, twos versus twos are running that same script with a coach watching every position. When you can have a one-to-one coach-to-position ratio on two fields going, I think it's great for the players. It's great for every single person on our team to feel like they're being watched and developed and coached up hard. And then I think it develops coaches too. We're hoping to have some success here. I've benefited from being in situations where I've been able to, attack new opportunities as they come. I'm hoping that for our coaching staff. I really am. But I also want to be prepared for if and when that day comes. We've got some great coaches right here on campus that are ready to step into some roles.
That attention you seem like you're paying to the number two guys, whether it's those 1 versus 2s at a coaching ratio, where did you pick that up? When did that become important to you to emphasize that?
I think it goes to a lot of different stops, I've been at. I think I'm a big believer in organizationally, we talk that development word is something a lot of people throw around, but are you doing things on a daily basis to really, not only test out those development skills of your coaching staff or your support staff around the players, but are the players seeing it? Are they feeling like, hey, I'm not only being told what to do, by watching the ones on the one field, I'm being told real time as they do it on that other field. And a lot of times we'll use clips from that field because it'll look different. You might not get the same check defensively. We might get a play run, versus a completely different look. Even though the scripts are the same, that's the way our systems are set up. They're going to adjust, and sometimes those adjustments are made. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes guys see it differently. So we're constantly using that tape to really apply to really all 90 guys on our roster right now to make sure everybody's getting the most out of the time when they're at our facility.
Kirk's got like 6 picks in team thus far. Are you encouraging him to potentially make some throws that he, last year wouldn't have made, or a couple of years back? Because he talked about that, the first read thing. And I'm just curious if there's an encouragement for him to not take dumb risks, but arrange his thinking.
How many touchdowns has he thrown?
Quite a few.
Do you know the number?
I don't, but
I don't either.
But the pick by Dantzler was a bad, un-Kirk-like pass.
You know what? You're exactly right, and that's what. If you talk to some of the great quarterbacks in this league, I can remember Drew Brees one time talking about training camp being the time to try things and really, hey, we're coaching progressions, but what that looks like in that razor-thin margin of error, like that's you got to test those out. You got to understand, hey, maybe I took the wrong footwork. Maybe I was a little late because I hung on my first progression a little bit too long, and that's really how our pass game works. We're going to try to build progressions in the rhythm and timing of what we believe they are, but every once in a while, depending on who's running the route versus the coverage that they get, you might hang on a guy a little long and then be late to something. You got to check the ball down. But those reps that you're talking about, each and every time we've had a kind of that learnable moment. As for all of our quarterbacks, Chris and Gerard are doing a great job with those guys, making sure that, mistakes that are made are you got to coach off those. You got to coach hard off those. But in training camp, you don't want to ever coach so hard that guys are so scared to make a mistake because the repercussions aren't the same now. Now, as we work into the season and we look back on some cut-ups and we look back on, hey, let's go look at that rep from training camp where it didn't go our way. Why was that? And 9 times out of 10, there's a tangible reason that you can say, we do this differently, or I script a better play, better formation, better spacing. There's so much that goes into it. It's a great question, but ultimately, there's a reason why stats during training camp for me personally, we don't talk about them a whole lot now. If we turn the ball over like we did one day, had the ball on the ground 3 or 4 times in offense, they heard all about that multiple times from me So those are the things we can control, but I never want these quarterbacks, especially this time of year, worrying about the outcome. It's more about the process of playing the position that will hold true for the rest of the year.
I think we saw Friday or Saturday Jordan Hicks kind of create a couple turnovers. What has he brought, both from a physical skill set standpoint and also the experience and the mental side?
Yeah, he's been doing that his whole career. Both he and EK have they're both very good athletes for playing the position. They can cover a lot of ground. What this defense allows people to do is everybody's got vision on the ball, on the quarterback, on different route structures. They can play in space, which is a real trait for linebackers in this league. But sometimes that doesn't go so well, depending on matchups and isolations within zones. But those two guys have an unbelievable feel to be instinctively where they're supposed to be by the X's and O's on a paper, but then also show up, punch a ball out, get a hand on a ball. I mean, EK's made some unbelievable interceptions in his career where if you were a betting man, you would not say that thing's going the other way when the ball leaves the quarterback's hands, but he'll lay out and make a play, or he'll get his hand on a football that will really change games, and he's done that all camp. Maybe they don't always result in turnovers, and with how we practice and guys taking care of each other, I think a lot more of those collisions will probably happen in games that will cause some of those turnover-worthy plays. But those two guys, it's been really cool to watch them kind of come together.
What led you to Mike Smith, and were you surprised he was available?
You know what? I was surprised. I think Mike Smith's one of the best outside linebackers, we call them here, but really those edge players, probably a better way to describe it. I think he's one of the best in the league at the technical side of pass rush and playing the run and all the things that go into playing that position. And when you've got two guys, really multiple guys, I should say, even beyond Z and Daniil, that are able to have an impact just with their physical ability, that's when it's fun as a coach to then take their games to the next level by really instilling a foundational, ability to rush the passer with multiple tools. And just like every other position, we're trying to equip these guys to go out there and have a long-standing amount of success versus teams that will adjust against them. They may chip them. They may try to have a plan for them, but Mike does a tremendous job kind of getting out in front of those things. So ultimately the coaching isn't just happening after the fact. That's constantly being built up with those guys. Those guys have had a tremendous camp, and I think Mike has a lot to do with it.
Did Mike Pettin come to you whenever? What was the timing on it? You get hired, and I'm not sure when Mike Smith became available, but had you hired Mike Pettin by then? And
I had, and I've known Mike a long time. When I was a player with the Jets, Mike was there working underneath. Mike Smith was there working underneath Mike Pettin. And I can remember even as a quarterback on the team sitting with those guys talking about blitzes and, being like, that's a terrible blitz. There's no way that's getting home right there, and taking a pen and, turning this arrow that way and that arrow this way. And sure enough, maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. But those relationships started years and years ago, even before I was done playing.
You touched upon Greg Joseph late in your press session the other day. Wonder if you could just expand on how well he's hitting the ball.
Yeah, I mean, there's a confidence level that you feel from him right now. Some of our special teams coaches, when he's kicking, they don't want to look at him. They don't want to talk to him because he's kind of in the zone right now. I kind of go the opposite way. So I talk to him and I look at him, and I'm trying to get in his head as much as possible. But when that toe hits that football right now, I mean, there's very few times, just the sound of it. I equate it a lot of times to, Major League Baseball scouts. They want to go hear the ball hit the glove or hear what it sounds like when it comes off the bat. Right now when he's kicking, it just feels like you don't even need to watch the ball. It's going in from 50 plus, and he's in a good spot right now. I've challenged him to, can you consistently work on your craft, and that consistency at that position is ultimately what this whole league's striving for. He's done everything that Coach Daniels and Coach Kotwick have asked, and I'm just excited to give him opportunities. Hopefully at the end of the 2-minute tonight he can maybe kick a game winner against our defense and get the 7,000 folks that are going to be here going a little bit.
Kevin, you talk about the identity you're trying to build here. Where do you see that coming? Can it come in these preseason games that are coming here? Do you need to see the team actually play another opponent to see that identity, or can you get it here, or do you have to wait till the regular season?
Yeah, ultimately I think we're going to get 17 opportunities during the regular season to prove what we believe our identities are. Ultimately, that really is all that matters in my mind. But these preseason games are great opportunities to really evaluate the players. Purposely, it's hard to hold the guys to a complete standard of our football philosophies when we may not want to show certain things, formations, personnel groupings, that ultimately will be left for those to imagine, not see on tape. So to watch it come to life, absolutely in its purest form from a X's and O's standpoint, probably not. But I do think the way we want to play football, how we want to be all about the ball and limit turnovers, how we want to be aggressive, how we want to be good in situations, I think that can go all the way down your depth chart. And if you emphasize it, I've learned with our team, you get what you emphasize. And when you talk to these guys and you're real with them, top to bottom, rookies all the way to 10-year veterans, these guys will respond. So that's what we're hoping to see. Tonight's another example of just stacking another brick in a tall stack of bricks of playing good football. And then hopefully it becomes so consistent to these guys that that's the expectation. And if it does not happen, that I'll be the first one that will be letting them hear about it.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, guys.